My stepsister faked her illness so she can trick my father, who, by the way, is very, very sick. And she wants all his money after he passes away, and she thinks this is the way she's going to get it. Well, you know what? I'm going to expose her for the liar that she is. In all of my years of existence, all I've learned is that people are so greedy and selfish. They're not just greedy, they're entitled and ungrateful as well. People let the past define them, and they excuse their bad behavior with their troubled past. People just don't get it that you can't just be a bad person because bad things have happened to you. Anyways, diving into the reason I'm so mad at my sister Eve. I've always disliked her, but now I hate her. I have a good reason for it. She's been a jerk to me all her life. And her aim in life is to get her hands on money without working hard for it. Well, I'm sorry, but that's not how the world works. I've always been patient with her, but this time she took it too far. My father has cancer. He's at the stage where he most probably can't be cured. My sister decided to make it all about herself and pretend to be severely sick, so that she could get all of my father's wealth after he passes. Eve isn't my real sister, she's my stepsister. She's not even my father's daughter, but my dad still selflessly treats her as her own. My real mom worked in a factory, and when I was a little girl, my mom fell while at work while climbing up a steel ladder that detached because its screws were loose. The accident killed my mother and completely destroyed my family. The company provided us with compensation for their negligence, but nothing really filled the void of my mom's passing. Well, anyways, both my dad and I could not really cope with it. My dad's become a drunk and neglected me for months. His neglect was so much that one day it led to a fire in the house, and my arm was severely burned. I still have the scar on my hand, and in my mind, I still have PTSD from everything that happened. My father decided to change his ways after the accident, and was fully committed to taking care of me and changing his life for the better. Dad worked in the movie industry, and using the money he got as compensation, he started his own talent agency. At first, his progress was slow, but his agency soon became a success. A couple years later, my dad married a retired model, Eileen, who already had a daughter, Eve, from her previous relationship. After a short-lived marriage, Dad and Eileen got divorced. See, Eileen cheated on Father and left with him. Eileen's new boyfriend was abusive towards Eve, so my dad decided to keep her with us. Eve's also played the victim card because of her traumas, and tried to get whatever she wanted persistently throughout her life. She would constantly compete with me for Dad's attention and, of course, money. My dad decided to give us both equal opportunities and the same allowance, but all she thought about was ways to get more money. I secured good grades in high school and excelled. I got into a good university, and my dad paid for it all. Eve was always jealous of me and constantly picked on me for being a nerd. In the end, I got a really good job after my graduation, and I'm in a very good place in my life. I've had ups and downs in my love life, and Eve's always made fun of me for it. Eve uses pretty privileges to get her away from guys. I've told her not to accept free things, especially from people she doesn't know, but she does not listen. She goes on multiple dates a week with different guys and doesn't even split the bill. Eve has her own business that my dad invested in. See, she's barely making any profit because she can't get her orders straight and get complaints from angry customers every other day about her bad products. Dad pays for her losses because she feels that one day she'll get good returns on his investment. Okay, let me put my current situation into perspective. My father's beaten cancer twice in the past 7 years. He sold his company to one of his dear friends, but he still draws money from it. He's been diagnosed with cancer for the 3rd time. Doctors are trying their best, and my father has this feeling that this time he won't make it. The cancer has spread to many areas of his body, and it's uncontrollable at this point. Currently, my father is homebound and spends most of his time in bed. He tries to walk, but gets tired after a short span of time, and Eve never moved out of my father's house. But I've moved in for 2 years to be with Dad more often because I don't trust Eve at all to take care of him. My dad has a caretaker to take care of household needs, and a nurse who exclusively takes care of his needs. It's been hard, but we've all been pretty much accepted that he might die anytime soon. He's not in pain, not much right now, but the longer he lives, the more pain that he will feel. I pray every day that my father has less painful death and is just at peace when he passes. Eve is drowning in losses, but isn't doing anything about it since my father pays for all of it, her careless spending with money she doesn't have. It worries my dad. He called her one day to talk to her about changing her ways, because he feared that she would spend all the money that she would inherit in no time. My father was worried about how she would survive after he died, because she's highly dependent on him for everything. And if it wasn't from him stopping her, she would keep doing reckless things that would ruin her life. Dad explained to her that he would be leaving half his wealth to her, and half to me, and that she needs to take care of it and not splurge on it the minute she gets it. He tried to tell her how much he struggled to earn it, and that there's no replacement for hard work. Eve was deaf to whatever my father told her. She was appalled that I would be getting half of it because I don't need it more than she does. She even argued with father that I'm doing well in life, and I'm where I am because he paid for my university. So, my dad revealed that he's always tried to give both of us equal opportunities, and revealed that he actually spent more on Eve than on me. So, her argument's not even valid. The whole argument turned around, and she tried to play the "you're being unfair because I'm not your real daughter" card with my dad. So, my dad tells her that he could not give me less just because I worked hard and was doing well in life. Eve was so offended. But we never expected what she was going to do to truly try to get her way. Eve started acting very peculiar all of a sudden. She was in bed all day, and when we would ask her for help or any favors, she would complain about having a headache. Eve would go to the toilet and vomit very often, and she would not eat much at the dinner table. Eve would leave the house telling us she was going to visit her doctor. See, normally, Eve never tells us where she's going. Concerned, we asked her what's going on and if anything was wrong. And why was she going to the doctor so often? And she kept telling us that there was nothing to be worried about, and ended up telling us that she didn't want to cause any trouble. The next day, she continued her ways of vomiting and eating less and left the house, telling us that she's going back to the doctor. We spent the next few days asking her again and again and again, "What's wrong?" She had the same reply all the time, and the way she replied was weird because it sounded like she was deliberately hiding from us, that something was wrong. My dad told me to quit asking her and that she would eventually come around. She also took a lot of money from my father, telling him that they were medical expenses. Well, I started to doubt that Eve probably got knocked up or something. She finally decides to tell us what the matter is. She came home crying and told us that she was very, very sick, and the doctors are diagnosing still what's wrong with her. She told us that she's unable to continue working and worries about what will happen after father dies. She cries that the medical bills are oh so expensive and that insurance is not covering it, and she then proceeds to ask for my share of the wealth after he passes, since she needs it more than me, obviously. My dad just looked at me, and his eyes asked me if I was okay with it. I could not protest because it would be selfish of me to keep the money when she obviously has these medical issues. So, I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no. My father told her that he would do his best to cure her, and he asked for her medical reports. He told her that if she needed it, he would give gladly all the wealth, that nothing mattered more than her life. She started making excuses about the medical reports and told my dad that she was initially misdiagnosed and that her reports are still pending. She told my father that she would give them to him later. After her revelation, Eve started acting entitled. She stopped taking orders for her business and stayed in her room all day long. My father suggested that she got some fresh air to feel better, but she would just say she's sick, she can't walk. Apparently, her condition was worse than that of my father, who had cancer and could barely walk but still made the effort to go to her room and ask her how she's feeling. Eve took her sickness as an opportunity to order me around. I said nothing, and I simply complied with every word that she said out of care for her. Well, my dad, he was actually severely ill and kept asking for her medical reports and what the doctors were saying. He asked me to find out what's going on with her because he could not do it himself. So I offered to take her to the doctor, but she snapped at me and asked me to stay out of her private matters. I found her behavior weird, so I decided to investigate. I found out her phone password when I saw her from behind, when she was opening her phone, and she left her laptop open and her phone on the table, and she went to have a bath. I knew she would take a long time, so I decided to sneak around. She does not even delete her search history, and out of all the weird things she searched for, I found that she was looking for ways to pretend to be sick. Her search history had questions like, how to fake a symptom? What symptoms are for illnesses? How do you get a fake diagnosis paper? I opened up her phone, and her texts consisted of messages to doctors asking for a fake diagnosis. All the doctors said no and told her it's illegal to do that, and they were not going to take the risk and get their license revoked. So I quickly took a picture of all the evidence that I gathered against her. I showed it to my dad, who was shocked and confused. He could not believe that he was dealing with this. I mean, she was doing this and wanted to know why she would pretend to be so sick. At first, he thought she was doing it for attention, but then he concluded that she was actually doing it to get more inheritance after he died. My dad got angry, and it was taking a toll on his health. I told my father to calm down and decided that we should confront her. My dad told me not to say anything to her and to let her do what she wanted. I thought my dad was being unfair. I argued with him that he had spoiled her too much, and my dad told me to play along and promised me he would teach her a lesson, and that he wanted to confirm whether she was lying or if she was really, really sick. So I did not confront her, but I also did not pay heed to her when she ordered me around. She threw a huge tantrum over insensitivities and how bad I was, and I just went about my work. She came with a fake medical report and even brought home the doctor who made it. The doctor had came up with a random, fake name for her illness, and my dad then finally confronted her and asked her why she was lying and why the reports were fake. Eve would not admit it, and kept telling Dad that she wasn't lying. So Dad finally revealed that the doctor was set up by him. The doctor was actually an actor who pretended to be a doctor and gave her a fake medical report that had been downloaded and edited on the interwebs. The actor had texted her claiming he was a doctor, and that he had heard she was looking for a forged medical report. He made her sign a contract saying that she would pay him $3,000. The contract, it stated in writing that all the reports provided were fake and that the actor would not get in any legal trouble. Eve actually paid him $3,000, and she took it from my dad with her fake scans and medical money. Instead of feeling sorry, Eve starts to throw a tantrum because she was set up so badly. Eve got angry at us when it was entirely her fault, and she even started assaulting the actor. So we showed her a copy of the contract that she signed and told her that she could land in serious legal trouble. Eve still would not admit that she did this and tried to make up stories. She told us that she thought the actor was a real doctor and that she misunderstood everything, and she claimed that she didn't know what she was signing. She tried to excuse herself and prove that she was clueless. So we had enough evidence against her. We had text messages between her and the fake doctor, and we had her search history. Eve realized that I was the one who snitched on her and started to abuse me and make personal attacks at me. My father told her that he knew that she did all this for his wealth. He then revealed that Eve has been written out of the will and that she will receive nothing. Eve starts screaming that my father was being unfair by writing his own daughter out of the will. She then said that it was because she was not his daughter, but she was his stepdaughter. Well, at that point, my father gets emotional. He could barely breathe while talking, but he told Eve that he had never treated Eve any different and raised her as his own, after her mother's new boyfriend abused her. He didn't want Eve to suffer, so he kept her with him even though he didn't have to. My father told Eve that her actions had hurt him, and he never wanted to see her again. He asked Eve to pack her stuff and leave, so Eve starts throwing more tantrums and called my father the worst father ever. I threatened that what she did was illegal and that if she did not leave, we'll file a case against her. So Eve gets scared and left the house. She called Aline thinking that she would take her in, but guess what? She refused. Aline blew up my dad's phone and my father blocked her before telling her that her daughter was no good, just like her. My dad always knew Eve was nothing more than a spoiled brat. But he was hurt by the lengths that she went through to get her hands on more money. So I consoled my father and told him that she needed to get out in the real world, to realize that she cannot be spoon-fed everything, and that it was for her own good. I told my dad that Eve had taken him for granted, and that she deserved to be kicked out. She isn't even his real daughter, and he's doing her a favor by giving her half his wealth. Instead of being grateful for all that my dad's done for her, she decides to be entitled and greedy. Well, I hope she learns a lesson soon. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. So this is a prime example of greed and what it'll get you in life. We have multiple updates to hop into. If you guys have not subscribed to the channel yet, go ahead, click that subscribe button. It really does support the channel, and this way you'll never miss another juicy story. Here is your first update, guys. Let's hop into it. Update number 1. We knew that it would be the last of Eve when we kicked her out. Just kidding, it would never be the last of her. She's the kind of person who holds grudges, and she obviously would not be able to live without the money that my dad provided for her. Moreover, she's been written out of the will, so we did not expect her to stay quiet about that. We thought she would be apologetic about her behavior and would come back home, begging us to take her back in, but she did the complete opposite. And instead of apologizing to us, she decides to make our drama public. She had a lot of followers on her social media business accounts. She lied all over her accounts, saying that we treated her differently and made her do all the household work after her mom left. She claimed that we never even really, liked her or treated her as our own, and my dad did not let her graduate, unlike his own daughter, who, by the way, is very, very successful. She revealed that she was very sick with a life-threatening disease, that we kicked her out because she was a financial burden now, and that we thought she wasn't of any use because she was sick. After her story spread like wildfire, people were sympathizing with her, and then she proceeds to start a crow fund for her illness and also tagged me in all of her posts, telling everybody I kicked her out and that I'm an evil stepsister. I got a lot of hatred on my social media accounts, which I had to close, by the way. I even got calls from people calling me evil. People who knew me were calling me and trying to condemn me for what I had done. My dad was not on social media because of his illness, and I decided to keep him away from it just to prevent any stress. He had already been hurt by her when he was lied to, and it took a massive toll on his physical health. I kept telling everyone that she's a liar, she's not sick, for she just wants my dad's money. But nobody would believe me. She had already portrayed herself as a victim. People didn't want to believe my side of the story, no matter how much I tried. I even got called out at work for being so cruel. I had to explain everything that happened and the fact that she was lying. I even showed them a picture of the fake contract she signed, and I was sick and tired of telling people how she's not sick, she's a liar. So I decided to give her a taste of her own medicine. I kept a close watch on Eve and knew that she was going to a party at a club. I went there too, and I recorded her chug down beer after beer and tequila shots while paying the huge bill with what I assumed would be the money she received from the crowdfunding. Well, I hit the jackpot, is what they would say, for that video. I made a recording of myself explaining what she did, and I attached clips of her partying and proof that she faked her disease, like the contract, her search history, her text messages, everything. My friend is an aspiring influencer with a lot of common followers from our high school, so I gave her my video. She agreed to share it on her pages, and the truth was out, because how could a person so sick be drinking so much alcohol and partying after she claimed that she couldn't even get out of bed? She and her close friends tried to tell lies, saying that the video was fake, photoshopped, and that I was trying to get back at her. Well, people saw her at the club commenting and confirmed it was her, and everybody called her stupid for stepping out after lying. They all called her out for lying and getting crowdfunded for a fake disease. People started blowing up her phone and her social media accounts to get their money back. She could not step out because everybody called her a liar and a fraud. People even made fun of her, and she had to disable her accounts. Well, my dad, he's completely oblivious to this, guys, all because his health is declining. I don't want to cause him any sort of distress, and I can't believe that Eve did not think about how sick he is after everything he did for her. Eve could not possibly go back to her business because of all the hate that she has on social media now. No one, and I mean no one, is going to buy her stuff because her main business was online orders from her pages, and she's in grave trouble. You know what? I think she deserves it. I haven't had the time to open my social media accounts. They're all giving her the reality check that she needs. Anyways, I hope she mends her ways soon. Update number 2. I'm here with a huge update. A massive update on the story about my entitled stepsister. So, I got kicked out of my house. Let me give you all some background on this. My yoga instructor has some knowledge about, medicine, right? I didn't believe it would work. We're talking Ayurvedic medicine. I didn't really believe it, right? But she gave me some seeds for my bloating, and it really made a difference. She also suggested that I dry out some leaves from plants, crush them into a powder, and give them to my father to help him with his cancer. Well, I didn't expect it to cure him, but I thought it might give him some relief, so I mixed it with water every day and gave him pomegranate juice, as suggested by my yoga instructor. I didn't see much difference in his health, but I was hopeful. I'd done my research about it, and it wasn't going to cause adverse effects on his body, so I started giving this to him way before my dad kicked Eve out of the house, and Eve disapproved of it. As I mentioned in my last update, my dad had no clue about the drama Eve did online. Eve's friends had asked her to leave, and she was desperate. Eve went home while I was at work and begged him to let her talk to her. She told my dad that he should not trust me. My dad did not believe her, but she promised him that she would prove him wrong if he gave her a chance. She told my father to get the powdered leaves I gave him tested, and my dad sent it in to get it tested with his own hands. The powder had small amounts of arsenic in it, and it was slowly killing him. Eve told my father I was poisoning him, and my dad called home to confront me about it. I was shocked, I was confused, because I was doing no such thing. Eve told my father right in front of me that I made up the story about Eve faking her illness just to get her out of the will. She lied to my father, saying that I've always been jealous of the way my father treated her as his own, because she wasn't his real daughter. She broke down into tears and told my dad many, many lies, saying that she had been quiet for so many years just for his sake. My father was already very, very frail, and he could not bear that I've betrayed him and tried to kill him. She had already manipulated my father before I arrived home. Our caretaker also went against me and told my father that Eve truly cared for him, and I was only doing it because I was jealous that Eve was going to get half of his wealth. All of this was a lie. But my dad had sent the medicine for testing with his own hands, and Eve wasn't even at home all this time. I was the one administering the medicine, and all the blame was on me. I didn't know how all this happened, and I was confused. I was shocked. My father asked me to leave and never show my face again. He said to me that he regrets that I'm his daughter and that he's ashamed of me. I told him that Eve is lying again, and that I've done no such thing. Eve threatened to call the cops on me even, and I told her that she could call the cops because I didn't do anything. Well, Eve grabbed me by the wrist and kicked me out. She told me that she would have all my stuff sent over, and she threw my phone and my purse out too. So, I stayed at a hotel for the night and got myself a new apartment the next day. Eve threw all my stuff out, and a lot of it was broke and thrown about, and I could not fathom that my dad did not believe me. I felt restless because my dad is sick, and I don't trust Eve to take care of him. I want to prove my innocence to him, but he won't even talk to me. I'm thinking about calling the cops or even hiring a detective or whatever. I just don't know what happened. I asked my yoga instructor about it, and she said that it should not have arsenic in it, and it's completely safe. I even made another batch of it and sent it for testing myself, and you know what? My yoga instructor was right. It's safe for consumption and doesn't have arsenic in it. I just don't know what to do. I'm all ears if anybody has anything to say or suggest about this. Final update. I finally got to the bottom of what happened. Strap your seatbelts in for this final update. Eve knew that she had to find her way back in and wanted to take revenge by getting me kicked out in the same way she was kicked out. She hatched a plan against me, and it worked. I wasn't going to let her get away with it, so apparently she asked our caretaker, who is good friends with her, to help her out. She promised to give her some money, and I remembered that I had CCTV footage of the house on my laptop. You see, it's connected by Wi-Fi. So I took a look at it to see if I could find out whether somebody tampered with my father's medicine. A day, 24 hours before my dad kicked me out, I saw Eve come home and try to talk to him. I rewound the footage and saw that the caretaker was mixing something in the container I kept my dad's medicine in. I only had CCTV footage until the day I got kicked out because my laptop was not connected to the Wi-Fi anymore. I couldn't keep track of what happened after I left. I was desperate to get back to my ailing father and prove that I was innocent. So, I called the caretaker up to meet me outside and showed her the footage. I told her that this is an offense, and you know what? She could be thrown in prison for it. I asked her why she did it, and she blurted out that she did it because Eve told her to. Eve promised that she would give her money in return, and as soon as Eve got me kicked out, she took money from my father and gave it to the caretaker. She gave her a measly $500 to do it? I asked her whether any arsenic had been given to my dad, and she said no. Well, I was relieved my dad had not been poisoned, but I had to take measures just to be sure, and I told her to listen to me and listen to me closely, or else I would give her to the cops. Well, she gets really scared and agrees. While Eve was out, the caretaker told my dad the entire truth about Eve. My dad was horrified, and he fired the caretaker immediately. Dad called me home and apologized for the misunderstanding. He told me that he was going to set things right once and for all. So, when Eve came home that evening, we did not let her in. We had left her stuff outside and left her a note that she would not be receiving anything from now on and that her lies have caught up to her. So, the caretaker told Eve everything that transpired. She kept knocking at the door, begging Dad to let her in. She starts throwing these tantrums in the street. So, we finally did it. We called the police on her and told them that she's causing a ruckus. When the cops came, she told them that we kicked her out without notice, and the cops set her right and told her that she could be evicted at any point in time because it's not her home. She was making a lot of noise, and the neighbors were complaining too. So, she had to spend a night in police custody. After the police let her go in the morning, she went to ask her friend for help, but nobody would let her stay because of her bad reputation and her tendency to be a freeloader. Now, she has nowhere to go and has to work hard for herself. She's brought such a bad situation on herself, and now I hope she understands what my dad did for her all these years, and that nobody in the world is kind enough to help her now. So the fact that Eve would even go the route of attempting to poison her stepfather just to frame OP is really personifying exactly who this person is And I do want to know your perspective. If you guys were in OP's position and you had to deal with this giant disaster of a stepsister, which route would you go? And do you think OP handled it the right way? Let's talk about it down below in the description section. Guys, I hope you did enjoy today's video. And if you want more daily videos, consider subscribing to the channel. My name's Mr. Reddito. I narrate stories like this every single day. So I hope you guys did enjoy it. I'll see you tomorrow. And of course, remember, it's cool to be kind, guys. See ya.